Students, we have one question displayed on the screen. So in the previous video lecture, we have already discussed about how to find out change in momentum. So we will continue to find change in momentum even in this problem also. It is been mentioned here, a particle of mass m is moving uniformly with a speed v. The particle is moving with speed v along a circular path of radius r. Now let us take a circular path, and this circular path has radius r. This is radius of the circle r, and this is center. I am denoting it with O, and this particle is moving from point A to another point B, which is subtending some angle theta at the center. So let me consider the particle is starting at this point A, and it is reaching this point B. Let us consider the particle is starting at A and it is reaching B, and from A to B this particle is subtending some angle theta. Of course theta is 90 degrees, we know that, but if at all if it is not 90, then it may be some other angle. You just take that angle, whatever it is. So here we are considering that A to B is an angle theta because it is mentioned in the problem. Now you should find out change in the momentum of this particle. So in order to find out change in the momentum of this particle, what we do is we need to find out, as we know, change in the momentum delta P is equal to final momentum minus initial momentum. Change in the momentum is final momentum minus initial momentum. Delta P is equal to, final momentum is at position B, so therefore momentum at position B minus initial momentum is momentum at position A. This is equal to mass into, however momentum at B is mass into velocity at B, so that is velocity at B minus velocity at A. This gives you delta P, which is change in momentum. Now I should find out change in the momentum. So in order to find out change in momentum, you need to find out the velocity vector at position A and as well as position B. So as at point A, the particle is said to have velocity in this direction. So whenever you want to find out the direction of velocity of a particle in the circular path, at that point you can draw a tangent that gives you velocity at that particular point. So I want to find out velocity at point A. So what I am doing, I am just drawing a tangent over there. Tangent at that point A gives you the direction of velocity of the particle at that position A. Similarly, at position B, I want to find out velocity vector that will be tangent to this point B. So from this point B, I am just drawing a tangent, right? Now this is velocity at position A, and obviously it is in upward direction. Upward direction, as it is vector quantity, you need to represent it with J cap because it is along positive y-axis. And finally velocity at B, it should be represented with, as it is pointed along negative x-axis, so it should be minus I cap. Okay, and when the particle is moving with uniform motion, see here particle is traveling with uniform motion, clearly it is mentioned in the problem. Therefore magnitude of velocity at A is equal to magnitude of velocity at B is equal to V. This is given to you. Particles velocity is not changing, particles magnitude speed is not changing. It means magnitude of velocity vector is not changing, only the directions of the particle is being changed. So therefore magnitude of at velocity A and magnitude of velocity at B will be same, that is V. I will now substitute, in order to find out change in momentum, I'll substitute VA and VB in this equation. So delta P is equal to m into velocity at B, it is minus V I cap, minus velocity at A, it is V J cap, right? This gives you delta P is equal to minus of M into V I cap plus V J cap. This is delta P can be written as minus mv into I cap plus j cap. This is change in momentum of the particle. Alright, so momentum change delta P is minus mv I cap plus j cap. So that means the resultant change in the momentum is in the direction I cap and as well as j cap, that is in negative direction. So simply, in order to find out the resultant vector of these two, what you need to do, simply you will construct a parallelogram law here. I am imagining velocity at P from this position. VB, I am just considering this. So if I construct a parallelogram law, the diagonal of that will be represented in this direction. See, this will be the diagonal. Right? Therefore, the resultant vector delta P bar is equal to minus mv I cap plus j cap. So it is minus I cap, or you can simply write it as delta P is equal to mv minus I cap minus j cap. See, this delta P vector which I have drawn with blue color ink, it is representing, see, it is traveling, it is directed along negative x-axis, minus I cap, and of course it should be minus, if I take it common, I plus j. So minus I minus j, I'm sorry. So that should be pointed in negative direction. So minus I and minus j, minus I and minus j, in the sense the resultant vector of these two will be pointed in such a way, it is in the direction minus I and minus j. That means it will be in the third quadrant, right? So the resultant vector is pointed in the direction which is like this. That is change in the momentum delta P. Remember, change in the momentum, the vector quantity, change in the momentum, it is vector quantity. As we know, delta P will not have same direction as that of velocities. So you should note that direction of change in momentum, direction of change in momentum is not in the direction of, it is not in the direction of velocity. It is not in the direction of velocity, but it is in the direction of, it is in the direction of change in velocity. Remember this. So it is not in the direction of velocity, but instead it is in the direction of change in velocity of the particle, right? So that is what the momentum change is in the third quadrant, whereas velocity at A, it is pointed upward, velocity at B, it is pointed along negative x-axis, but change in the momentum is pointed in the third quadrant, it is minus I minus j. Clear? So therefore, whenever you are dealing with vector quantities, you should be very careful with the directions of that given vector. So whenever you are dealing with circular motion, magnitude of velocity will be remained same. So VA magnitude is equal to VB magnitude is equal to V. Magnitude will be remained same, but direction is different. So at point A, it is minus V I cap because it is traveling along negative x-axis. And at point B, its velocity is along positive direction. So it is plus V I cap. I want to find out change in momentum. Delta P is equal to final momentum minus initial momentum. Final momentum is momentum at position B. So it is PB minus PA. Final momentum PB, it is VI cap minus of momentum at A, it is, I'm sorry, this there should be M here because momentum P is equal to MB. So M, and initially momentum at position A, it is minus V I cap. This gives you M into V I cap plus V I cap. this is plus 2 times mv I cap, that is change in the momentum. So change in the momentum is twice that of the momentum at position A and as well as momentum at position B. So this is the way you need to find out change in momentum for a particle which is moving in the circular path. We are considering a particle of mass m which is initially in motion and its initial velocity is u. So as it is possessing inertia of momentum, it has initial momentum mu. It is already in motion, but it is in uniform motion. Now what you are doing, you are applying some force. That means you are pushing this object, you are pushing this mass m by some force f. You are pushing it. As a result, what would happen? Definitely, when you are applying some force on this body, its mass does not change, but its velocity do change. Velocity will become now v, final velocity, without any change in the direction of the particle. So direction of the particle is not being changed. It is only magnitude which is being changed. The particle is exactly going in the same direction as that of before. Like before applying force, in which direction it is traveling, in the same direction it is traveling after applying force even. Now the finally its mass is m and it is also in inertia of motion, and its final momentum can be written as m into v. So because of the applied force, what is happening in this case? The momentum of a body is now being changed, right? Suppose if you are applying greater force, momentum would undergo increase greatly. If you are applying less force, momentum would change with a less magnitude. So there comes some time taken t here. So in order to change the velocity of the particle from u to v, it takes some time. There is some time change delta t. Okay, so the applied force F applied is directly proportional to rate of change of momentum. You can clearly write that. Because of the applied force, there is change in the momentum. If you are applying force with greater magnitude, change in the momentum would also be greater. If you are applying less force, then change in the momentum would also be less. Therefore, force applied can be simply written as directly proportional to change in the momentum of the particle. Delta p represents change in the momentum and delta t represents the change in the time taken. So like initial time it is t1, final time let me take it as t2. Initial momentum is pi, final momentum is pf. If I remove this proportionality, I should include a constant. So I will be writing it as f is equal to some constant k into delta p divided by delta t. This is average force acting on the particle in order to change its momentum. Therefore, whenever you are acting force on the body, it changes the momentum. Therefore, you can simply define it as time rate of change of momentum. Time rate of change of momentum of a body is directly proportional to the resultant net force acting on the body and takes place along the direction of force. So F is directly proportional to rate of change of momentum, and F is equal to K into delta P divided by delta T. So that is average force. Generally, we will be like experimentally it is being calculated like K will be equal to 1. Now experimentally it is found K will be equal to 1. Generally in almost all the cases K will be equal to 1. Therefore you can write F average is equal to delta P divided by delta T, and F instantaneous force can be written as limit delta T tending to 0 delta P divided by delta T, which is equal to dP divided by dt. This we have already learnt in motion in straight line. Motion in straight line, we have defined what is the difference between instantaneous velocity and average velocity. There you will be learning about this. So F instantaneous can be simply written as dP divided by dt. that is instantaneous force. Now you can simply write F average as delta P by delta T can be written as final momentum minus initial momentum divided by final time minus initial time. This is mass into final velocity minus initial velocity divided by final time minus initial time. This is equal to m into delta V divided by delta T. Check it up. But what is delta V by delta T? Delta V by delta T is equal to acceleration of the particle. So you can write F average is equal to m into acceleration A. And remember, acceleration is a vector quantity, force is also a vector quantity. Now you can write down unit of force. Mass is having unit kg. Acceleration has unit meter per second square, or you can simply write it as Newton. Newton symbol is capital N. On the honor of scientist named Newton, we are taking unit of force as Newton. And remember, force is vector. Force is vector quantity. It is vector quantity, and the direction of force is in the direction of acceleration. So mathematically, from Newton's second law, you can get these equations. F is equal to delta P by delta T. F instantaneous is equal to dP by dt, and F is equal to ma, where a is acceleration of the body. Now, if suppose F is equal to 0, that means no net force. No net force acts on body. If there is no net force acting on the body, if F is equal to 0, then ma bar will be equal to 0. This gives you acceleration is equal to 0. Therefore, if at all there is no force acting on the body, acceleration of the body will be equal to 0. It's not velocity. Remember that. So force bring acceleration. Force bring acceleration. So whenever you are applying force on the body, it causes acceleration but not velocity. Force will not cause velocity. Force will be causing acceleration to that particular given body. So force always brings acceleration, and even there can be change in the acceleration also corresponding to the applied force. Of course, change in velocity is calculated as acceleration. So therefore, remember that force produce acceleration but not velocity. Remember that. Similarly, if at all you are applying force on the body, if F is not equal to 0, that means you are applying force on the body, but acceleration of the particle is equal to 0, then magnitude of force will be equal to 0. For example, let me take, I'm taking a wall. Let me consider there is a wall. Here is wall, and a person is pushing this wall. He is applying force. He is putting some effort and he is applying the force. When he is applying force, do this wall move? Wall does not move. Wall will not move. If wall is not moving, what about acceleration of the wall? Acceleration of the wall is equal to 0. If acceleration of the wall is equal to 0, it means that F net on wall is equal to 0. So that means there is no force applied by this person, literally, like experimentally, there is no net force, there is no force acted by this particle, by this person on the wall. So if there is no acceleration produced, even though you are applying force, you can consider that magnitude of the force is equal to 0 because it is not producing any acceleration. So if acceleration is 0, then force will be equal to 0. And remember that force bring change in velocity. Change in velocity. So that means velocity of the body would undergo change corresponding to change in momentum. So it cannot produce, it will not be like, for example, if a body is in the rest position, when you are applying force, it gains velocity. It gains velocity in the sense it is producing acceleration. Final velocity becomes non-zero, initial velocity becomes 0. It produces acceleration. Remember that. So these are the physical significance. This is the physical significance of force from Newton's second law. F is equal to dp by dt. This is instantaneous force. But what do we have for momentum? P is equal to mv. Okay. So if at all v is changing, if v is changing, then you can write F instantaneous is equal to d by dt of mv, as m is treated to be constant because velocity is changing. Therefore m into dv divided by dt gives you magnitude of the force. So F can be written as m into dv divided by dt. But always it may not be the same situation. Sometimes mass may be variable, velocity of the body may be constant. If mass is variable and velocity is constant, then in such cases you will be writing F instantaneous is equal to d by dt of mv. But in this case velocity is constant, so you will bring v out, that is v into dm divided by dt. So simply you can write F is equal to v into dm by dt. So if at all mass is variable and velocity of the body is constant by the applied force, then F can be written as v into dm by dt, right? So that is what we can get one more equation corresponding to F instantaneous, which is equal to dp by dt. So whenever if mass is variable, don't hesitate to take dm by dt by maintaining v as constant. Students, we have got one question here. A force produces an acceleration of 16 meter per second square. So whenever you are acting force on your body, it is causing some acceleration. That is point number 1. So for example, you have took a mass which is 0.5 kg. It is mentioned in the problem, mass of the object is 0.5 kg. A force produces an acceleration of 16 meter per second square in a mass of 0.5 kg. So when you are acting an external force on this body, if the mass is 0.5 kg, it is producing an acceleration of 16 meter per second square. Okay, 16 meter per second square. And an acceleration 4 meter per second square in an unknown mass when applied separately. So what he is telling is there is another mass. This mass, let us consider m. It is not mentioned in the problem. Same force you are applying on this object. Same force. When you are applying same force on this object, it is producing an acceleration of 4 meter per second square. It is producing an acceleration of 4 meter per second square on the unknown mass when applied separately. If both the masses are tied together, now these two masses are tied together. One is 0.5 kg and the other mass is m. If both are tied together, what will be acceleration under same force? So when you are applying now same force on this object, what will be the acceleration? A3 is equal to how much? You are now supposed to find out A3 acceleration on the third case. So we have three possible things, like once you are applying force 0.5 kg, so it is producing an acceleration of 16 meter per second square. So in order to find out A3, you should find out this F first. F is equal to how much? Is it not? In order to find out A3, what is formula in the last case? This is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. Okay. In the first case, I can write F is equal to MA. And in the second case also, you can write F is equal to MA. And in the third case also, you can write F is equal to MA. But what is F here? F is force, which is equal to mass in this case is 0.5 kg plus M into acceleration A3. That is in the third case. Coming to the second case, F value you do not know, mass value you do not know, but acceleration is given as 4 meter per second square. Okay. In the first case, F is equal to mass is given 0.5 kg, acceleration is given 16 meter per second square, and that will be Newton. So simply you can get F is equal to MA. M and A are known. If M and A is known, then you can find out force F, right? So that gives you 16 into 5, 5 6 30, 5 1s are 5, 6 7 8. So this gives you answer as 8 Newton. So force is 8 Newton from the first case. So if F is 8 Newton, take this 8 Newton and substitute in the second case. So 8 will be equal to M into 4. From here, M is equal to 2 kg. So second mass, its value is 2 kg. Right? F magnitude we have got, it is 8 Newton. M magnitude we have got, it is 2 kg. Now substitute all these in the third case. So F is equal to 8 Newton, which is equal to 0.5 kg plus 2 kg into A3. This gives you A3 is equal to 8 divided by 2.5. 8 divided by 2.5, that is equation for acceleration A3, that is 80 divided by 25 meter per second square. This is acceleration produced in the third case when both the masses are tied together and you are applying the same force. Students, one small thing I forgot to tell you. We know that F is equal to MA. Unit of force is Newton. Symbol of Newton is N, or it can be written as kg meter per second square. This is in SI system. Okay. Now I want to convert this into CGS system. Right? So 1 Newton is equal to 1 kg 1 meter per 1 second square. Okay. I want to convert this kg into gram. That gives you 1000 gram. Meter I can convert it into 100 centimeter divided by second square. This is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 10 power 5 unit gram centimeter per second square. So it is 10 power 5 gram centimeter per second square, and this is 10 power 5 gram centimeter per second square is called dyne. Therefore, it is written as 1 Newton is equal to 10 power 5 dyne. So whenever you have got relation between CGS and MKS system of force, of unit of force, then in such case you can use this. 1 Newton is 10 power 5 dyne. Newton is kg meter per second square, that is equal to 10 power 5. Dyne is gram centimeter per second square. That is the relation between MKS unit and CGS unit of force. Newton is unit in SI system or NMKS. Dyne is unit in CGS system. So relation between Newton and dyne is 1 Newton is equal to 10 power 5 dyne. Gravitational unit of force. Another unit of force is gravitational unit of force. Gravitational unit of force is taken as 1 kg weight. 1 kg weight in SI system. 1 kg weight is equal to 9.8 Newton, and 1 gram weight. 1 gram weight is in CGS system. 1 gram weight 1 gram weight is equal to 980 dyne, right? So this 1 gram weight is equal to 980 dyne. That is the relation between gram weight and as well as SI system. So gravitational unit of force is kg weight and gram weight. So remember, you can convert 1 kg weight into 1 gram weight. 1 kg weight is equal to 980, or you can just write it here. See, 1 kg weight is 9.8 Newton and 1 gram weight is equal to 980 dyne. You can just relate these two. 9.8 Newton is equal to 980 dyne. That gives you relation between kg weight and gram weight. Right? So that is gravitational unit of force.